Good evening and welcome to The Story. I'm Tim Gordon in for Blair Best tonight. Well, we've waited all week for a federal judge's final ruling on whether or not the Trump administration can deploy the National Guard to Portland. The judge gave herself a 5 o'clock deadline today, and the ruling was uploaded online at 4:58. It is our big story tonight. And here's the 106-page ruling from Judge Karin Immergut, issuing a permanent injunction blocking the National Guard from being deployed to the ICE building in South Portland. A big win for the state of Oregon and a major setback for the Trump administration, although this is likely not the end of this big legal battle. Let's bring in Kyle Aboshi now to help us understand why the judge ruled the way she did. Kyle?
Tim, in her order, Judge Karin Immergut made it clear the ruling doesn't stop the president from ever deploying the National Guard. But in this case, it wasn't lawful. The judge ruled the president didn't meet the two criteria he needed to mobilize troops. There was no rebellion, and the feds could still do their job. She wrote, quote, "The evidence demonstrates that these deployments, which were objected to by Oregon's governor and not requested by the federal officials in charge of protection of the ICE building, exceeded the president's authority," end quote. The final order comes after a 3-day trial that ended exactly a week ago. The state of Oregon, California, and city of Portland sued the Trump administration, arguing the president exceeded his authority. The federal government claimed the president has the right to deploy federalized troops. Since late September, Judge Immergut, a Trump appointee, has repeatedly sided with the state of Oregon's challenge over troop deployment by issuing 2 restraining orders and a preliminary injunction. Her final decision ends the debate at the district court level, blocking troop deployment to Portland. But again, it will likely be challenged on appeal to the Ninth Circuit Court in the coming months.
All right, Kyle, so what happens with the National Guard troops now? We know Oregon troops were stationed out at the coast, while some California troops were in Happy Valley. Are they heading home after this ruling?
Several hundred of them. It really is not clear, Tim. The troops have been under the command of U.S. Army's Northern Command for several weeks now. I actually reached out earlier today. Northcom, as it's called, said National Guard troops are still stationed in Oregon, where they've been doing planning and training. We should have some answers in the next few days whether or not they'll be headed home.
Kyle, thank you very much. Enjoy the weekend now. And when it comes to immigration enforcement, well, we have a story coming up later in the show tonight, looking at the 911 calls made inside the ICE processing facility up in Tacoma, Washington, what they reveal about medical care for detainees, and we'll hear from a man who was held there describing the conditions inside. Well, major relief tonight for thousands of Oregonians who rely on SNAP benefits to help buy groceries. The state of Oregon began loading full November benefits onto EBT cards as early as last night, following a federal judge's ruling forcing the Trump administration to fully fund this month's benefits. A federal appeals court upheld that ruling today, and the Trump administration appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Just moments ago, the Associated Press reports the nation's highest court granted the administration's emergency appeal, temporarily blocking the order to fully fund SNAP during the government shutdown, now the longest in U.S. history. So it's not clear how that ruling will affect things moving forward, but according to the leader of Oregon's Department of Human Services, people who rely on SNAP do not have to worry about current funds on their cards disappearing. John Adams spoke with a woman today who had her family's benefits fully restored.
After a week of uncertainty, November SNAP benefits have arrived for Oregon families. That includes Bree Armstrong's family in Multnomah County.
When I looked, it was the full amount, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's there!" It was like 10 p.m., but I ran straight to the corner store just to get a couple things to eat, and then came back.
The acting director of the Oregon Department of Human Services says the state moved quickly after a judge ruled the Trump administration must release full November benefits by Friday.
Our teams worked through the night to make sure that more than 700,000 Oregonians had access to their full food benefits this morning.
The Trump administration is now turning to the Supreme Court after the judge's ruling, but Wentz says that money can't be clawed back by the federal government.
Your benefits are on your EBT cards today. You can use them as you normally would. These are 100% federal funds, and once they're on their card, they're yours to spend on food.
In the weeks since benefits lapsed, people and businesses around our area have stepped up to help people in need. Heretic Coffee in Southeast Portland has been offering a free SNAP breakfast. and has raised almost $360,000 from 12,000 donors. Owner Josh White says they have given out over 800 meals, many of which have gone to children.
Like, I'm learning and literally seeing in real time over the last 6 or 7 days how many children are coming in so grateful that they get to eat that day.
White says many who have received the meals have also donated what they can.
People who receive the SNAP breakfast are digging through their purse and just finding change and saying, I have 81 cents, can I donate this as well?
While families like Armstrong's can now return to the grocery store, there is still uncertainty surrounding benefits for December as the government shutdown continues.
It's a very trying time. I'm hoping that, things can get worked out and figured out for, the months coming. Nobody should have to go hungry. Nobody.
John Adams, KGW News.
And while we're talking about money, today the state of Oregon announced the kicker that you'll receive when filing taxes next year. Though amounts will vary depending upon how much you pay in taxes, the total amount being returned to taxpayers is just over $1.41 billion. Again, you will receive your kicker as a credit on your 2025 taxes. You will not get a kicker check in the mail. The kicker credit will either boost your state income tax refund or go toward the state taxes that you owe. There are some conditions regarding whether or not you receive the kicker credit. First, you need to have filed your taxes earlier this year with the 2024 return. And keep in mind, the state can use some or all of your kicker credit to pay outstanding state debt, things like taxes from past years, child support, and court fines. Now, there are a couple ways to calculate how much your kicker tax credit will be. The easiest option is using the state's What's My Kicker calculator. There you put in your Social Security, your tax ID number, your last name, your filing status from earlier this year, like filing as a single person or married filing jointly, things like that. And then your expected filing status for next year. Then you hit Find My Kicker and the website calculates your refund automatically. That's a nice way to go. Or you can find a link to the kicker calculator on our website, kgw.com. That's important to know. But if you'd rather not put your personal information onto a state website like that, well, your other option is to do math the old-fashioned way. So here we go. Pay attention. You take your 2024 personal income tax liability before any credits and multiply it by 9.8%. The resulting number is your kicker credit amount. You can find your personal income tax liability amount on line 24 of your state tax return. As an example, someone with a state tax liability of $5,000 would receive a kicker credit of $493. So that's $5,000 times 9.8%, 0.09863, which equals $493. We'll have a quiz on that at the end of the show. All right, new details tonight on the connection between the man accused of setting a fire that damaged a Portland City councilor's home and Oregon's flawed mental health care system. Portland police arrested Vashon Locust this week and charged him with reckless burning. Police say Locust is a homeless man who lit a fire inside a storage shed to stay warm, but that fire spread to a carport, burning Councilor Candace Avalos's car and part of her home. Well, Locust has a long criminal history of mostly misdemeanors and drug charges. Multiple times, judges have ruled that Locust needs mental health treatment before his criminal cases can move forward. But time and time again, Oregon's system has not found the right solution. Evan Watson has more in his investigative series called Uncommitted.
When an October fire destroyed the car of Portland City Councilor Candace Avalos and damaged part of her home, Avalos and others worried it could be an act of political violence. Instead, the case appears to be another example of the gaps in Oregon's mental health care system. Portland police investigators used this video showing a man walking away from the fire to connect the case to Vashon Locust, a homeless man who started a fire to stay warm, police say. Court documents show Locust has been unable to get the right treatment or assistance for years. Multiple mental health evaluators have diagnosed Locust with unspecified schizophrenia or another psychotic disorder. In early 2024, Multnomah County Judge Nan Waller ordered Locust to the Oregon State Hospital, ruling that a hospital level of care was necessary due to public safety concerns and Locust's symptoms. Waller previously talked with KGW about how Oregon lacks access to the right level of care for many people.
So I think that it's a combination of not having the whole continuum of placements and treatment available. We know that for some people, at least to get them stabilized, they need to be in a secure setting.
About 10 weeks later, Locust was released from the state hospital, ordered into community-based restoration and treatment in Portland. Court documents show that shortly after Locust arrived at that facility, he left. He missed court dates and treatment requirements. Waller issued a warrant for his arrest. The step-down plan from the state psychiatric hospital didn't work.
I absolutely know that we don't have in the communities the level of the right kinds of placements across the whole continuum, from low barrier to secure. It doesn't exist.
Months later, officers arrested Locust. Finding him still too mentally ill, Waller wrote that, based off the assessment of forensic diversion, the defendant is not a good candidate for community restoration at this time. Locust had already been to the Oregon State Hospital and couldn't go back there, so she dismissed the criminal charges and let Locust go. About a year later, Locust told investigators that he lit a fire to stay warm. It was cold. His clothes were wet. He wanted to sleep. He tried to stomp it out when it spread, but it didn't work. He left with it out of control.
Evan Watson joins me now. And Evan, in a case like this, is there anything that really works?
Yeah, it's a challenging situation, Tim. So legally, when it comes to it, it's very hard to mandate anyone to get mental health care, especially if they haven't committed a crime. In criminal cases, such as aid and assist cases similar to this, the state hospital is an option, but the state hospital is full. It's at capacity. So when you have someone like Locust in this case with misdemeanor cases, it's not likely that they're going to be able to stay at the state hospital for long because more people, there's such a demand in there. So then the question becomes, where does that person go? What is the step down? And you hear things like secure facility. A secure facility, for an example, when it comes to secure, means effectively the doors are locked. Someone has to stay there to get treatment and to receive that type of care. But as we know, that's easier said than done. There's a lot of demand for those types of facilities as well. So ultimately, what it comes to is there's difficulty in finding where to put people that is the right situation for them, where they can get help. It's hard to mandate people into this. And ultimately, as we reported in our Uncommitted series, effectively, Oregon waits a lot of the time for someone to commit a crime before getting them help.
Right. All right, so bottom line here, are we seeing any progress with Oregon's mental health system?
A couple of things, I will say. It's not all doom and gloom here. One would be that Oregon lawmakers did this year just change the law, lowering the standards for civil commitment. That's when someone hasn't committed a crime, but they're mandated to get mental health care. That became really challenging to get in recent years, and now judges are allowed to look at past behavior and future behavior to determine if someone can be a danger to themselves or others. So that could help get upstream, make those decisions earlier rather than waiting for a crime to happen. Also, there has been some investment in new mental health facilities, different types, secure, non-secure, residential, things like that. So those are a couple of the good things, but when it comes to the larger picture here, you still have capacity issues. The state of Oregon is also paying monthly fines for contempt in a federal court. Those monthly fines because people are waiting too long in jail before they're being transferred to the Oregon State Hospital. So there's so many moving parts here, and ultimately it comes down to all these things are interconnected, right? In this case in itself, Locust, homelessness, and drug use, and other things like that. When we look at the other ails in society and areas that we're focusing on, these all have that interplay. So that's why we feel it's important to keep reporting on this subject.
Yeah, and you have been shining a light on all of this for months now, and it is making a difference. Yeah. Evan, thanks very much.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah.
All right, coming up later on the story, an investigation into the medical care at the ICE processing facility up in Tacoma, which handles detainees from both Oregon and Washington. But first, a live look outside on your Friday night. It's glittery out there, just beautiful. Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino joins us with his updated forecast, giving us a look at next week. That's when the story returns. All right, let's take a live look outside on this beautiful Friday night. Wow, we're set to have our first fully dry weekend in the past month plus. We just have to get through this first.
You mean me?
Yeah, we have to get through you first, Matt. But I
Right.
think it'll be worth it because you've got some great news for us.
Yeah, you got to get through me before you get to that one. No, the weekend's already begun for many, many people. And like you said, I looked back at the numbers. I'll show you. It's the first time in a long time we will have a completely dry weekend. Now, this isn't live. This is a little bit ago, about an hour or so ago. The last vestiges of sunset. Love the green sky over. Looking to the southwest now, of course, the TV towers out over North Portland here. There's the railroad bridge over the Columbia River. There goes the train right there.
Cool.
But again, we had a little bit of clearing and with a lot, and see the showers just melting away as the sun goes down. And we don't have to use radar all weekend long because it is going to be a dry weekend. Now, the rainfall since midnight, not very much for most locations, but Aurora and McMinnville picked up a decent amount of rain. Of course, we had a decent amount of rain all week long. So, we're not shedding any tears over what we did not get today. Now, this is a calendar going back to September 28th and through yesterday, okay? And if you look at it, this is Saturday, there's Sunday. What do you see? Rain, 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 rain. That's 4 Saturdays and 4 Sundays in a row. So that's the last 4 weekends. Now, the weekend before that, the first weekend of October, Tim, it doesn't show up here, but there was a trace of rain on Sunday. So what that means is this will be our first totally dry weekend since September.
So ready for it.
That's 6 weekends. No, we're well overdue for a dry weekend, and we get it. There are some scattered clouds offshore, but this weather system doesn't really impact us until really at all. It's going to sort of fall apart, maybe send a few high clouds over as you can see it out there. Doesn't ever bodily move into the northwest. It does help to induce a good east wind, though, so any fog that forms in the morning, and I expect the valleys to have quite a bit, will clear out, at least in the Portland area, as our secret fog dispersal weapon, the east wind coming out of the gorge, kicks into gear. It's going to be blustery out in the gorge. And we'll get some gusts 40, 50, 60 miles an hour at Crown Point and up in Corbett. For Troutdale, probably about 40. The rest of us, not so bad. Now, there's a weak weather system here on Monday that will just dot the area with a few light showers. That's a decaying cold front, so not a big deal. Then it dries out again until at least Wednesday night and maybe until Thursday as this weather system takes its time rolling on in. In fact, it waits for reinforcements to come down from the Gulf of Alaska. Then it moves in. So not exactly a fast moving pattern up until that point. Our high today was 58 degrees in Portland, and we're still in the 50s right now, sitting at 53. You'll see the moon up in the eastern and southern sky later on tonight. It was full a couple nights ago. So fog in the morning and then sun. We get up to 60 tomorrow. 63 on Sunday, Tim, with the east winds helping the warming there. A few scattered showers possible on Monday, not a big deal, and still dry on Veterans Day Tuesday, and then either late Wednesday or on Thursday, the rain comes back. But boy, a much deserved and I think a very welcome dry stretch on the way.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of people, I love the rain. It's been great, but it's time for a break. And also, I've got a foot of big leaf maple leaves in my backyard. So
let those babies dry out before you try to rake them up.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Thanks, Matt.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Up next on the story, 911 calls from inside the ICE detention facility in Tacoma, Washington. Plus, hear from 2 men who have lived through the experience of being detained there on the conditions and the kind of medical care being offered. That's next when the story returns. Inside the Northwest ICE Processing Center in Tacoma, Washington, 911 calls for seizures, suicide attempts, and medical emergencies paint a grim picture. Advocates say conditions are deteriorating as the number of detainees grows. One man who lived through it calls being detained there a nightmare and says the system is failing those inside. Sharon Yu has a story.
911, what are you reporting?
Suicide attempt.
Hi, we have a female here having active seizures.
Caller, what are you reporting in the medical call?
I think it's dehumanize everyone that is there. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, hi. I have a medical emergency at 1623 East J Street, Tacoma.
These calls expose a system cracking under pressure.
But I work.
And for Fernando Hosha, it's personal.
My word crumbled in there. It's not. That's not my word. I came from art and theater, education.
Before his arrest by ICE, Fernando Hosha's life played out on real stages. From professional companies to high school productions.
It's old newspapers about my former theater group in Brazil. This is me.
Hosha left his home country of Brazil chasing that dream. He filed for asylum one day before his visa expired. In July, ICE pulled him from his car and locked him up. He has no criminal record.
I didn't know what was happening. I thought I'm being kidnapped.
He says he was stripped of his clothes and his identity, reduced to a uniform and government-issued underwear at the Northwest ICE Processing Center in Tacoma. When he got sick inside, he says the response was even more insulting.
They gave me Tylenol.
The medical assistance is, really bad.
Victor, who is in custody right now, was on a hunger strike when we spoke, protesting conditions inside.
I had 3 times COVID and 5 times infection respiratory pulmonary. And they never give it to you, anything good. They only give you a packet of salt and they say, oh, you gotta, rinse your throat, that's it.
Do you think it's a case of neglect or incompetence?
I think it's both.
Josefina Mora Chung is an organizer with La Resistencia. The nonprofit has monitored the Northwest ICE Processing Center since 2014.
They're usually given Advil for everything. You have a cold, Advil. You have kidney problems, Advil. Anything, they just want to prescribe painkillers and are not fully equipped to be able to handle the medical concerns that people have.
Mora Chung says people held for long periods without enough medical care, food, or time outdoors can face serious mental health problems.
Southbound with a transfer, 1623 East J Street at the Northwest Detention Center for a suicide attempt. Patient's currently in medical, and I'll have further when you're done.
Records King 5 obtained show between February and April, medical staff responded to 3 apparent suicide attempts inside the detention center.
We just had a detainee jump off from the upper tier down to the lower tier.
Do you know if they've done anything to harm themselves? Or
they said they've attempted twice to hang himself.
We've reached out to ICE's local representative and the national media team, but did not get a response. As for Hosha, he's back in school, teaching, working with students in theater. But he carries with him...
Oh, look at that.
Is that your ankle monitor?
Mm-hmm. So the battery is gone.
An ankle monitor that reminds him daily he may be free to roam, but isn't free to live without boundaries.
Tell my story beyond my own, beyond my ego or my figure, to bring to light what is happening with a lot of people that is going through that experience.
Fernando says his attorney told him the fastest way to getting status in the U.S. is to either marry a U.S. citizen or to get President Trump's gold card. That's a new residency status you can buy for $1 million. Well, that's the end of our story. Thanks a lot for watching. Timbers 360 is coming your way next. Have a great night on a Friday night and enjoy a dry weekend. Blair's set to be back on Monday.